Good morning, it's Monday, May 20th, 2024, 9 a.m. This is the Muscatine County Board of Supervisors. Call the meeting to order. First item on the agenda is to review the agenda.
Move to approve as presented.
Second.
I have a motion by Scott and a second by Nathan. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carries. Item 3, discussion of possible action to approve claims dated May 20th, 2024 in the amount of $1,995,881.52.
I would move to approve. Second.
Motion by Scott, second by Kurt. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carries. Item number 4 is discussion and possible action to approve an ordinance rezoning approximately 8.1 acres in Sweetland Township from A1 Ag to R1 Residential on the first of 3 readings. Eric?
Morning. Apologize for being gone last week. I was sick. I understand a public hearing was held on this matter, and the board might wanted some feedback from me or had some specific questions following that public hearing. So, did you have any specific questions or?
Yeah, I think Eric, so this is a proposal to put an R1 residential in the middle of an area that's in the comprehensive plan, shows primarily commercial or anticipated development. So the concern I have, as always, is what kind of land use restrictions does putting an R1 residential in that area, what does that do to other landowners in the area?
So here's the issues that I see with this proposal. According to our zoning ordinance, residential zoning districts such as this proposed R1, they're intended to provide regulations for those areas within the county that are designated for subdivisions composed of estate-type lots. Future land use map does not show any additional residential development or expansion north of 170th Street or west of Sweetland Road. There's approximately 50 acres of land in that area that I just described, north of 170th and west of Sweetland. 21.64 acres is already zoned C2 commercial district. Approximately 3 acres is zoned C1. There's approximately 2.5 acres that's been zoned R2 residential for years and years. And there's approximately 23 acres that's currently zoned A1 agricultural. This means that 49% of the land in this area is already zoned for commercial use. Given the existing C2 commercial zoning in this area, the proximity to the parcel in question, and the fact that permitted land uses within the C2 district are not necessarily compatible with residential development, and that comes from the zoning ordinance as well. Planned and managed growth practices would strongly suggest that the area would be expected to continue towards commercial development, not residential. That's kind of the issues that I see. When we lay out zoning districts, they should be laid out in larger swaths where continued development, not strips, but like clusters that serve the needs of the area, that also serve to avoid conflict with adjoining land uses. C2 is specifically listed as a district that has a higher potential for conflict with residential uses. So given the development that has occurred over the last probably 20, 25 years in that area, this pie-shaped piece north of 170th really seems to have an established trend of going towards commercial. And it's really hard to start reversing course on that when you have existing land uses that are in that C2 category. This proposal proposes one small chunk of ground for R1. It doesn't propose residential expansion, which is what we normally look towards when we look at converting from ag land or anything else. Does this area accommodate future land use of a given district, not just one here, one there? That's spot zoning. So strictly speaking, from a managed long-term land growth and management perspective, I just don't see much that suggests that residential rezoning in this area would be a sound planning practice.
And the zoning board approved this based on a hardship. What are the rules about building because my understanding is they also own the commercial land right there on Sweetland Road as well. So what are the rules? I mean, you can put some residents in commercial, so what are the rules around that?
So in a commercial district, residential structures, are allowed on the second story of a commercial property. We don't see that in the county. Typically, you'll see that in towns where you have a commercial district. Think of Second Street, parts of Third Street, commercial ground floor. It's kind of a carryover from historical where a shopkeeper lived above his shop, or in downtown areas where you have a bunch of apartments above. But in the county, we don't typically see that, but there is a provision for that in certain areas. Say we had an area that had a bunch of commercial, it would allow some apartment type dwelling on the second stories.
So, this R1, would the setbacks, commercial and residential setbacks are significantly different as well?
They are,
Correct.
and a lot of it depends on the adjoining district too. There's many different types of setbacks for commercial and industrial, depending on what adjoins it. It's often more significant if there's adjoining residential. So the commercial property owners adjoining would be subjected to additional setbacks, which they're typically not if they adjoin additional commercial or industrial.
And ag, do they have the same setbacks?
Because we don't expect potential nuisance or conflicts with agriculture and commercial like you do residential, residential, and ag. Ag can tolerate, a cornfield doesn't care if there's lights and sounds and vibrations, that type of thing.
For me, I've been going back and forth on this, trying to, I never want to tell a property owner that they can't do what they want, but we got to follow the comprehensive plan. Although the comprehensive plan isn't the law of the land, it's strong recommendation on how we should move forward with our zoning. And I take all that into consideration, and then the zoning commission voting 3-2, I try to weigh that out because we put them in place to make those decisions. There's a hardship consideration that they've taken into consideration. And there's no guarantee that it will go commercial, although it's recommended that, there's a strong likelihood that it may. So I've been going back and forth on where I stand on this. It's been a tough one for me, and I think property rights outweigh things a little bit for me.
Yeah, well, zoning is one of the few things that we ever fill chambers on, when you get into, we've had issues out in that area. I remember when the Sweetland Mill moved out, or when they relocated from 22, there was a lot of concern about that. So you have an existing commercial, an existing enterprise that was in there for years, and we had some issues around that. And those are always the things I worry about. I don't worry about the specific individuals today because they all know what they're getting into. It's what happens down the road 5, 10, 15 years. We have that issue up on Zachary, up in the Zachary area right now we're dealing with. These are very difficult ones for me.
When you reference the future, do you mean like if they decided to sell that property in the future?
Right.
No, I try to take that into consideration too, but if I was gonna buy a place, I would realize what's around me, and I should know that the commercial or industry may, you have to accept that responsibility on yourself if you're gonna buy that property if it comes for sale. That doesn't mean they ain't gonna complain about it later, but
Yeah,
it really is putting it on the property owner.
we had
to
a
buy it.
very controversial one where Mike Dare up on, I don't know where what street his operation was changing his animal units in his confinement, and we had a whole subdivision come in opposing it, and we're just irate, and Mike had been there 25 years before the subdivision. So this is the kind of conflict you see when you put residents in county close to ag and commercial and all that I worry about, because up front, it seems simple. And again, I always want the landowner to be able to do whatever they want. I'm kind of a live free and go person, but the long-term consequence is my concern in this situation.
So this subdivision that's just to the east there, on Sweetland Acres Lane, when did that come in?
Probably the early 70s, early to mid 70s is the construction date on a lot of the homes out there.
Okay, yeah, just checking, see when they were built.
That's where the Sweetland sale barn used to be, livestock sale barn.
So, there are some residences obviously in that area. There's the one on the corner of 61 and 100 and,
Commercial,
is that all commercial now? 'Cause
yeah.
I'm showing that log cabin, is that,
Yeah, that's Sweetland Trailer Sales, and I think
Okay.
that's all commercial. And then, were those the original farmsteads? Is
Yeah.
that how
There's
those
an
are?
original farmstead there, then there was a house built, and then there was, commercial zoning, so.
Okay.
Any of the residential structures you see in those areas that are zoned commercial already have a sunset on them.
they're all, okay. And then the one down at the intersection of Sweetland and 170, that was built in like 1900. What's the business that operates there, with K&R?
I'm not quite sure what they do out
Okay.
of that building, to be honest with you. I think one of the challenges when, and everything I've said, I've struggled with trying to be sympathetic to a hardship. I mean, I think all of us understand that. When we talk about making land use decisions, particularly rezonings or developments based on hardships, a precedence can get established. And
Sure.
so if a rezoning was to be granted on this particular hardship, is there gonna be an application 9 months from now based on something similar or different, but no doubt still a hardship, and where does it stop? And so, as calloused as blank land use policies seem to be, they serve a purpose to keep everybody making objective decisions based on overall long-term benefit, long-term growth that benefits everybody in the county. And that is always the challenge in balancing unique hardship cases with comprehensive land use planning. Precedences are a real thing once in land use cases, and they're a large ship to turn around once.
Yeah, I was trying to distinguish up in the Zachary area, I don't remember the name of the subdivision, the hardship claim.
Excuse me.
Wanted moving elderly parents onto a 10-acre plot, and it was denied by the zoning commission. So that, to build a residence, because it was A1 ag, and those are things, I don't know how you pick the winners and losers when you start making exemptions, so I understand that
So-
completely.
This was a rezoning and not a special use or a variance. In those cases, I understand the actual legal standard involves finding of a hardship. Is that correct?
Well, you must find a hardship, and you have to avoid finding that there's something that points to the unfairness of the zone. Like a unique geographical location is a very typical
That's for variance.
for a variance. Variances are typically where the hardship is that the current zoning regulations, after they've been found to be sound, are creating a hardship where the owner of the property cannot expect a reasonable return on their investment because of something unique like steep slopes or wetlands and minimal developable ground. So we may shrink the setbacks for them because something unique about the property creates a substantial hardship. But if there's a list of items that you must be considered to establish, and the courts have said that financial itself is not a hardship. Circumstances created by the owner or previous owners where they chose to build a building does not burden the county with recognizing a hardship.
Sure. So but that's for
a variance.
Is there a legal standard that is articulable for a rezoning, or is that simply in the discretion of whomever?
Rezonings are not intended to take individual hardships into account, because then you lose the overall objective long-term planning view of things. They're laid out to benefit more than just one person. Rezonings are not for the benefit of one person to do what they want, but to benefit the county as a whole, to continue with managed long-term growth that allows for emergency response, allows for update and maintenance of existing infrastructure, access to resources like parks. It's really not an individual case by case. It's, does this make sense for long-term for more than one person to benefit the county?
And so what about the current zoning specifically precludes the building of a home in the way they proposed?
It's currently zoned A1 agricultural, so that leaves two mechanisms to build on if you set rezoning aside. Two alternatives. One would be if you're farm exempt, the person owning the farm proves by application that the primary use of the property, they themselves are the owner, and the primary use is income producing agricultural activity, or a special use permit for a rural residence, which, as you're aware, there's a whole set of criteria. Rural residences were established as a special permitted use in the A1 district because we understood that under limited circumstances, there are those pieces of ground that have low ag value that it's okay to allow a limited amount of non-farm related housing throughout the county. But those are looked at a case-by-case basis, and we would go back to looking at adjoining land uses to avoid conflict.
Sure.
Just like we wouldn't allow a special use permit in the shadow of an existing hog confinement, the commercial land use in the area is gonna affect how the Board of Adjustment would weigh that as well.
So I guess the way I see it is, if you look at the choices between the various vehicles, whether you go special use or a variance, or you look at rezoning, to me, rezoning is the most extreme option or spot zoning, because of its potential for disruption. I mean, the result might be the same, but even though there's a very high standard for those other two, it sounds like, I guess what I'm trying to figure out is this something that could, should, or might be addressed under something other than rezoning?
Well, anything's possible. I think all of them have some similar issues with the adjoining land uses and zoning districts. Certainly, I would agree that rezoning is probably the most extreme, because that does establish a precedence for expected residential development in the area.
Right.
Whereas potentially a special use permit, the argument could be it was looked at on a case-by-case basis, maybe even with some hardship burden applied. However, there are still things that the Board of Adjustment would have to ignore that in themselves could establish additional precedences for other cases, similar cases.
And in looking at this case, it seems the owner has owned the land in one form or another. Well, first in the family, but certainly since 1995. And so I guess I would have trouble finding a hardship where that situation, or where the ownership pre-existed the current impetus for the application.
And quite frankly, again, I don't think with a rezoning consideration, hardship is really never a consideration.
Right.
So you're saying the zoning commission took a hardship into consideration when really they shouldn't for a zoning change?
Well, I'm saying, and I don't know that anybody actually ever said hardship. I mean, Carol came and talked to us about her reasons. I think that was kind of their de facto consideration, or the atmospheric surrounding her decision. So for me, I have a hard time doing spot zoning ever. And so I naturally look at it then, if this had been brought under one of those other rubrics, whether it be a variance or a special use or what have you, I don't see that the standard would have been met. Now, I don't want to put myself in the spot of the zoning commission or the adjustment board or whoever would handle that, but I don't necessarily see that would be a hardship that deprives the owner of economic use of the property. So I guess I'm having a hard time seeing my way clear to this, just because of the extreme remedy of the spot zoning. But I'm still listening.
But you also said that another avenue could be ag exempt. Correct?
Potentially.
So,
I can never preemptively approve ag exemption scenarios. I have to take them as they come on
Sure.
application, weigh them case by case with the claimed ownership, claimed activity. But I just gave you the scenarios under which a person could potentially
Sure.
build a house in the A1 district. And farm exempt is certainly one that is commonly observed.
any questions from you?
The ground directly to the west probably has a greater than a lesser chance of being rezoned to commercial at some time, I would guess. That's just my personal opinion.
Is it A1 now, that kind of triangular shaped piece
Yes. Right
along
here.
61? Okay.
Yeah. Right there.
COA1. Okay, yeah. If a home were put in on the proposed parcel, and that triangular piece were rezoned commercial and commercial development came in there would be issues with the setback potentially from on the parcel to the
There'd
west.
be a greater setback imposed on any of the surrounding commercial properties.
And that being a weird shaped parcel, you're gonna have setbacks from 61 as well.
And I
could see
think,
that compromising the
I
use.
think if a residential zoning district was established in this particular area in question, it would become more difficult, or there would be more considerations for that A1 piece to move towards commercial because of established residential, especially if it was C2 that was proposed.
Right.
Specifically because C2 is listed as being not necessarily compatible with adjoining residential. So it adds another layer, another burden towards continued commercial, which appears to be the predominant direction of the future for this particular area.
There's an existing, I don't have the map, and I forgot, it was a week or two ago. There's an existing house on that 8.1 acres, right?
No.
Okay.
There's that business along 61, and then there's nothing between the storage facility and that business, right? Just farm, just land.
So that house, to the, I guess it'd be to the north,
Commercial.
that's commercial there. Where's the nearest, there's no, the nearest homes
There's
here?
residents here and here, but these are zoned commercial. And they were
And that
18,
lower right-hand residence was built in the 1900s.
1900 something.
So there's no concerns if commercial or industrial come in, there's no concern with setbacks currently from any residents in that area?
Well, whatever, it may be on that one that's just along the COC2 that's on 170.
Cause that's all commercial right there.
I mean, it's being farmed, it looks like,
Yeah.
and that's the storage facility. So other than that house on the bottom right, there's no, I mean, is someone living in that
Yeah,
bottom left-hand one?
yeah,
But it's zoned commercial?
yeah.
Bottom left-hand one.
And I'm sorry,
Sweetland Trailers.
Let me,
Yeah.
yeah, I'll get you a name.
Yes,
Jim and Peg Shepherd.
So they can live there even though it's
that's the one I
commercial?
referred to, would have a sunset on it once it got zoned commercial. If that house were to burn down, there's not an automatic, or a tornado were to destroy it,
Okay,
there's
so
an
it looks like
automatic.
it is zoned commercial,
It is.
but they're kind of grandfathered in because the house
Correct, it's
pre-existed it?
considered, it's called
I
a
see.
non-conforming existing land use.
Got it.
So would there be any setback concerns for that, even though they're on commercial? Would there be any setback concerns for that same piece of property? If somebody wanted to,
That's a good question.
I got it.
For either of those two
Does the
properties.
setback
for either of those
apply
two properties?
by virtue of it being how it's zoned, or by virtue of there being a residentially occupied structure on there?
Zone.
Okay, so that doesn't create setback problems, the Shepherd's Place.
No, the adjoining, the adjoining districts
I see.
is what determines the applicable.
So if I have a pre-existing non-conforming use, that doesn't trigger setbacks.
No.
Got it.
And on that Shepherd property, there was a big square, two-story farmhouse on that was built 100 years ago or whatever. And, they built the other home to the north and tore the older home down.
I see. So that thing's gone?
Yeah, that's gone.
Okay, so the one that's just in the very corner area here, it's got
Correct.
this little
Correct.
ranch house. Okay.
Correct.
Gotcha. All right.
Breeze today.
What's this here?
Okay. Any other questions for Eric? Well, we had a public hearing last week, as we have a number of people in chambers today. I assume everybody's here interested
Oh,
in this,
1893.
in this subject. Is a for assumption or a correct? If so, I would allow people to make comments, just give a name and address. If you have something you didn't hear that you'd like the board to consider.
Was the public hearing closed last week?
Yes,
We have discretion to do that, though. Yeah.
we have discretion to take input on items.
As long as
on it.
we've had a public hearing, it was formally noticed.
Yep, come to the podium and name and address and.
Can you hold that mic down a little bit?
Yeah, it was hard to
I
hear.
struggle hearing.
The fans are getting us.
Jamie Hazen, 6703 51st Street South. Again, I know that you guys heard last Monday that the property has been in my family I think my grandpa acquired it in the 70s. I grew up out there. Right now, my kids are growing up out there. Our business is the K&R, where that's my office and my sister's office. I work out there every day. That's where I am every day. On the weekends, when my kids want to ride their dirt bikes and four-wheelers, that's where we are. If you, and I know I sent some of you an email, I don't know if you had a chance to see it all, but if you put a pin in where we want to build and draw a half-mile radius circle, just within a half mile, there are 22 other homes. 22. 3 businesses, 2 of which have homesteads on them, and 1 egg center, and a church. I think it's a pretty ambitious assumption that that whole area is going to go commercial. And again, as long as it's not something that's going to be damaging to the land like a factory, we don't want to hinder that. If Mr. Sauer wanted to build more storage units, that's a small business that's working out and thriving, and that's good for him. We just want to have the opportunity to live next to our business like the other people do in that corner or that triangle. It's a selfish reason, but it would save my husband and I probably $40,000 to $60,000 by being able to build there instead of having to buy another property. And that $40,000 to $60,000 is things we can put into the home: wider doorways, ramps, lift devices for my son. It's all money that we could use to make adaptations for him. And again, it's where I grew up out there. My kids are growing up out there. Someday it will be handed down to my kids. This is not something we're ever going to sell. And if we're basing our decision on, well, there might be hardships for a corporation to come in there or a company to come in there and want to build something, we still own the land, and we would probably, especially if we can't build out there, we'd probably selfishly, we wouldn't want that, a big factory or something out there. But I also think the 22 other homes that are within a half a mile aren't going to want a big factory or something out there. And again, we don't want to hinder growth, especially for other small companies. That's not our goal. We just want to build where I've grown up, my kids are growing up, my grandpa owned. And like I said before, when you have a child like Lucas, which you guys saw last week, he tried to add too much to the conversation last week, so we didn't bring him this week. But you can't find childcare for a child like that, especially during the summer. So it would be incredibly convenient for me to work right next to where I live. We're not ever planning on building more than just one home. I'm not ever going to want someone to build a home between where I live and my business. So I'm not sure if that is a concern. We just want the same opportunity that other people have in the area.
Eric, the half-mile distance around is, how is that relevant?
Well, there isn't any specified minimum distance. The comp plan and the zoning ordinance just recommends sufficient buffering between more intensive land uses. I think I pointed out during the zoning commission hearing, I think if we were looking at rezoning additional land east of Sweetland Road, the fact that there's a fully paved, at least 66-foot right of way, if not more, so probably 80. A road in between could be considered buffering between commercial businesses, but I mean, there's literally zero buffering when you're adjoining parcels, one zoning district to the next. It's hard to articulate that there's buffering when zoning districts are literally contiguous. So roads, specific topography, buffering is typically recognized as residential C1 and then C2 on the outskirts at the farthest away from residential, because C2 has the higher potential for nuisances.
I think it's ag.
But it recommends some sort of buffering between residential and commercial 2 in particular, because of the higher impact potential uses.
So remind me of some examples of difference between C1 and 2. C2, you could have bars and restaurants. and-
Bars, restaurants, convenience stores,
Convenience
nightclubs.
stores, nightclubs.
Yeah, mechanic shops, things that just have a lot more lights, typically heavier traffic, your McDonald's type things as opposed to, there's lots. I don't have the whole list in front of me of both districts, but
Eric, east of Sweetland Road, that's, the large triangle, that's ag. There's a little bit in the corner, I know, before you get to Sweetland Ag. Is that all ag, the
right now that's
Sweetland Road to the Angle
between
Road?
61 and that other section of 170th.
Right,
That's all currently zoned A1 agricultural across the road, save for a little bit of older R2
In the corner
where the
down there.
church is and the one residence there.
Is there a place that, if they built that house, in a corner of that property, that 8.1 acres, that would help with the setbacks to the west if somebody came in commercial? Or does that whole piece, no matter where they put the house, it would, affect that?
Oh, I mean, it's a 8.1 acre parcel. I think there's no doubt a single-family residence could be situated somewhere on that 8.1 acres, and everybody around it would be able to realize,
I'm just wondering if that would help the situation, if they put it to the far east, away from that corner, would the setbacks be good for a commercial to go in there if that ever came together?
sure,
Well, but would it also be true if a subsequent owner could theoretically build anywhere on that lot, right? If it's zoned agriculture or residential?
it would have to meet the minimum R1 separation
Sure.
distances.
But situating it in a special spot now would not mean that all forever that's the only place it would be.
Right, and it could be subdivided into additional lots. The burden would be transferred to the adjoining commercial properties or potential commercial properties to the west would have to observe larger setbacks because they would now adjoin, or in the future, adjoin a residential district. So less of the property that is now A1, should it go commercial, could be utilized.
And is the relevant, I guess, zoning unit we're looking at, is that triangle between 170, Sweetland, and 61? Is that kind of the area that we're considering as a solitary mass for the purposes of this zoning issue?
I believe so because
Okay.
because of the existing land uses that are immediately adjoining.
And I mean, I know we have questions as to what's gonna happen in the future, and no one obviously can know the future, but it looks to me in the last 50 years, there's maybe been one home built in that area, in that triangle, if you will, and 4 or 5 commercial buildings, and the home was built first, like maybe in the 70s, if I'm trying to figure it out. But that ranch house, maybe, and Scott, maybe you know when that was built.
The Shepherd home,
Yeah,
I believe that was a replacement of an
Yeah, that
existing
was-
You talking about that little shack?
log cabin.
no,
type.
not talking about the log cabin, because
Log
that's being
cabin?
used for commercial, but the ranch home that's there, is that the one that's still
not a-
there?
That's not a ranch home, that's a,
Oh, is that
that's a
pole
pole
barn?
barn.
Alright, so is there any other residential structure on the Shepherd's land besides the log cabin?
No.
No.
Okay, so I take that back, so the only structures built there, and the log cabin looks like a residential, but it's being used for commercial.
It's
It's a
actually-
residence.
No, it's resident, it's being used, that's the one I said,
Ah,
and it would have a sunset on it because it was rezoned commercial.
And it,
Oh,
and it was the replacement for the big
Farmstead.
farmstead home.
and when was this area zoned commercial, do we know that?
I think, other than the applicant's property that's up on 61, that's been C1 for a long time.
Sure, and I'm talking about the Shepherds, where the log cabin.
Those have been in the last, both the Shepherd rezoning and the storage units to the east. That rezoning's all been in the last 15 to 20 years, I
Okay.
believe.
Okay.
It's 20 years on the storage facility, and Shepherd was prior to that.
Okay.
So 2025.
Yeah, 25.
And how long has the commercial activity on the Shepherd's property been going on?
Well, at least 25.
Yeah.
Alright,
I
so
think in the mid-90s.
they basically wanted what the Phillipses wanted, but because they had a replacement, they were replacing a house that was already there, they had a sunsetting window where they could do that. Got it, okay, thank you. But other than that kind of special time limited situation, all the construction in this area has been commercial in
Correct.
the last 30-ish years.
Correct.
And to me, that establishes a trend, more or less. Yeah, and I certainly understand the situation and the hardships that exist personally. I just don't see, unique facts in my mind make bad policy bases. And I don't see the rationale for doing it on a rezoning. Now, whether that would constitute a hardship under the other avenues, I think it's possible that it might. Who knows what the zoning board would find, but that's not my call. I tend to think it wouldn't. But I don't see being able to support a spot zoning here.
Okay.
I don't like it, but
Other comments? Anyone want to make comments to the board? Considerations? If not, I would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I will second.
Motion by Danny. I have a second by Nathan. This is a roll call vote. Scott?
I'll rescind my vote simply because I own commercial ground that adjoins it.
Scott is recusing from the vote. Nathan?
Nay.
I vote nay. Danny?
I vote to approve.
Kurt?
I vote nay.
Motion fails on a 3-1 vote. Okay, item number 5, discussion of possible action to approve the minutes of the May 13th, 2024 regular meeting and the May 8th, 2024 special meeting.
I do want to ask, on the May 8th minutes, do you want a signature line so that the board, the conservation board also signs these minutes? If so, that could be
It was
revised.
a joint meeting, we probably should do that, so we have the
Okay.
chair from the conservation board on there.
So if we amend it to just add that,
Okay,
okay.
so would
That works.
do a motion with the amendment for the change as recommended by the auditor on the
Yes.
May 8th minutes. So do I have a motion?
So moved.
I have a motion by Nathan with the amendment,
I'll second.
second by Danny. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carries. Item 6, correspondence. Scott, did you have any?
I had the email from Jamie Hazen that I think the majority of us got, maybe all of us got it. And I also had a call from Bill Furlong concerning land use potential changes, and I believe his conversation was towards the up and coming hearing in West Liberty on the comp plan, which is going to be on
Wednesday.
this coming
Wednesday.
Wednesday. So I believe that's what he was referring to me. I couldn't put it together right away in my mind, but I believe that's what he's referring to, and that's just conversation there on that. That's all I had on correspondence.
Nathan?
See, I had the same email from Ms. Hazen, and then on the comp plan update, just some stuff from Eric and that.
Okay. I had the same email on the comp, or from Miss Hazen. Danny?
I had that, and I don't recall this resident's name, but he had some concerns with Sweetland Road from 22 to New Era, and I spoke to Brian about that.
Kurt?
That's all I have.
I had the same email from Jamie Hazen, and also I talked with Bill Furlong this morning on the same subject that Scott did concerning the meeting on Wednesday.
How about committee reports? In the committees, Kurt?
Yeah, committee reports, okay. Tuesday, the 14th, I had the Lower Cedar Water Management meeting in Tipton. Wednesday, the 15th, a Muscatine meeting. Thursday, the 16th, Muscatine County Fair Board meeting. And Friday, the 17th, We Lead meeting. I had nothing on the weekend, fortunately.
Good week.
Yeah, I think I'm done for the month though.
Yeah, good. Andy?
The 13th, I had Mississippi Valley Workforce Development Full Board Meeting. The 14th, Chamber Economic Development Committee. On the 16th, Mississippi Valley Workforce Development CEO meeting.
Is the state making more changes to those workforce boards? Do you foresee the Mississippi Valley staying, or do you think that's gonna get
As far
absorbed
as I
into
can
the
tell
state?
right now, they're staying.
Okay. 'Cause it sounds like most other boards have,
There's not a
Dissolved
lot of
into the
support in
state.
other areas of the state. They gave it back to the state control, but as far as I can tell, they're keeping the other districts.
I had on the 15th, I had the MCJCC as well. Nathan?
Let's see, I had the Muscatine Decategorization Board meeting on the 13th.
Scott?
I had Riverbend Transit on Wednesday the 15th, and they're continuing to try to work forward on their $7 million new parking garage, I'll call it. And they're having some of the same problems that we meet in other funding mechanisms with the DOT. Everything has progressed nicely going forward, but it's all about getting the I's dotted and the T's crossed with them, and the time frames on the deadlines of the projects and so on and so forth. And Randy and his crew have worked very hard getting this moved forward, but there's just a lot of little bumps in the road on this. So hopefully get that pulled together and get this out for bid and get this thing moving. It's been a few years in the works. Also, on the same day, on Wednesday the 15th, I had the Board of Health. That's all I had.
Next item on the agenda is items with the administration office. Item 8A is discussion and possible action authorizing the chair to sign an amendment to the ARPA grant agreement with the city of Muscatine for the indoor sports complex to extend the expenditure deadline from June 30th, 2024 to December 31st, 2024. Does that fall within the guidelines of the funding allocation, Kayla?
Yeah, so they have until 2026 to spend it, but they anticipate it being done this fall. We're just extending it, because we're the funder of last resort.
Okay.
Okay.
So
Second.
A motion by Nathan, second by Scott. Further discussion, Andy?
The only thing I wanna mention on that is that I'm a strong advocate of the project. I originally voted against the funds because I wasn't crazy about using ARPA funds for it, so I won't be supporting this either, so, but I want the dome, I just wasn't crazy about those funds being used for it.
Yep. Okay, so any other discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, the same?
Alright,
Motion carries on 4-1 vote. Item B, discussion and possible action authorizing the county attorney to sign the settlement agreement and release with Roosevelt Calderon. I hope I spelled that, or said that
I
properly.
have to table this till
Uh,
the, because
Well, I think we had a meeting about this, so this is just to sign the agreement we already approved, so I would think we could go ahead and take action on it if the board's comfortable. The county attorney was ill this morning, so,
yeah, I would agree with that too.
so I would accept the motion.
I'll make a motion.
I have a
Second.
motion by Danny and a second by Kurt. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Alright,
Aye.
I recuse myself based on possible conflict.
Okay, so you have Nathan's recusing and we have a 4-0 vote. Okay, item number 9, receive information from county employees. Any county employees wishing to address the board this morning? Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Tara Hogan. I live at 104 Pine Street in Fruitland. I am the union steward for the ASME Council 61 Local 606. I am here to speak on behalf of our union members in response to the county's recent counterproposal submitted on May 14th. Our union representative, James, gave our initial proposal in writing on or about April 12th and again on May 10th, in which membership asked for an 8% wage increase across the board and implementation of step increases to honor the longevity of employees. Over the course of several months, James has repeatedly reached out to Nancy Schreiber and the county's representation, Ann, for the purpose of rescheduling wage reopener negotiations, only to be told that the county would prefer extending the existing contract. On May 10th, we still had not received any counter proposal meeting dates, or any other form of progression from the county, at which time James drafted an email grievance to all Board of Supervisor members, Nancy and Ann, voicing our frustrations. On Tuesday, May 14th, we finally received a counter offer from the county of 3.25 adjustment to the current scale. Step advancements continued 1% at a time, payment in December for employees at top scale as of July 1st, 2024. The total cost of this proposal is 4.28%. We as a union feel this proposal is unacceptable. Our union members are significantly underpaid, including but not limited to nursing staff. Currently, we have only one full-time RN who yields $58,000 per year. The county has paid two different staffing agencies more than $160,000 for contracted nurses since September of '23. Our food service workers are the lowest paid members, one of which who has been employed for 13 years, yet only receives $40,000 annually for a salary. Our records clerk has been employed for almost 25 years, and her annual salary is right under $40,000. Cost of living, housing, groceries, utilities, health insurance have all significantly increased, which our current salaries do not keep up with the rising cost of inflation. While all of us employees have IPERS and decent health insurance, it is becoming increasingly impossible for county employees to put much into their retirement or to their savings. Because of county wages, they have not kept up with the rising cost of inflation. Employees are struggling to make ends meet, and continued employment with the county is becoming unsuitable for too many. We are all dedicated employees who value our service to the county. However, the rising costs of living have led many of us to consider other means of employment. We are respectively requesting relief from the county, which would likewise promote retention and recruitment of new employees. Thank you for your time.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Eric Lindell. I'm currently a correctional officer for the Muscatine County Jail, and I'm also the union steward for Teamsters Union 238. First, I would like to thank you guys for your time and dedication. The correctional officers value and are dedicated to their commitment to the county. We strive day in and day out to fulfill our duties. Doing our part makes the community safer. Correctional officers have a wide variety of skills, ranging from de-escalation tactics for hostile or suicidal inmates to searching for drugs, weapons, and processing court paperwork. We respond to medical emergencies and dangerous situations such as fights or combative subjects, and provide necessary medical care when needed. We house local inmates, but we also house for several other counties, as well as federal inmates from 3 districts. While with housing of the federal inmates, the county has made millions of dollars, but have used those funds on other things and have not reinvested in their employees, which is very disappointing. Since we house so many inmates, the assaults on correctional officers have risen each year, but yet none of this is recognized by the board. We, as well as the citizens alike, have consistently witnessed the board raise the wages for certain positions within the county, but have failed to address the wages of correctional officers, deputies, and administrative support staff at the jail. With that being said, our administrative director, Nancy Schreiber, makes approximately $139,130.44, which is currently more than what the governor makes. We find this appalling, considering that some of us are struggling to provide adequate support for our families at this time. Businesses such as Quick Star, Walmart, and Panda Express have increased their starting wages to a few dollars less than what we start at, and we put our lives on the line every day. The board's offer of 3.25% for a pay increase is shocking, to say the least. It does not even cover the cost of inflation over the last 4 years. Most places of employment have increased their wages in the past few years to combat the astronomical inflation rates. This county is not doing so, has placed its employees in financial hardships like they did in 2018. Once the previous governor allowed them to remove language from our contracts that prevented us from bargaining with the county. Once the county realized they could do this, they took away our longevity pay and all other language in our contracts, which no other county near us has done in the state of Iowa. We are asking the Board of Supervisors to please reconsider the offer and show us that we are valued for our training, years of service, and dedication. Thank you for your time and your consideration.
Good morning. I'm Mike Channon, Corporal with Muscatine County Sheriff's Office. Today we address a significant concern that affects not only our members but the entire community in Muscatine County. There is a growing frustration due to the delays and communication failures in our negotiation process. By no means does this letter or our opinion of our unit reflect negatively on the job performance of Sheriff Reese. He's doing a great job. Approximately 1 month ago, the county suggested an extension to our current union contract. We agreed to consider the extension providing it included a fair adjustment, a 10% pay increase, and a reduction from the top step from 14 years to 10 years. While dropping these steps would not affect the county financially next year at all. The proposal was based on your own salary study, which highlighted that our deputies are underpaid compared to those in much smaller counties like Cedar and Louisa County, where both the cost of living and operational demands are much lower. However, the counteroffer we received was a mere 3.25%. This proposal not only falls short of the study's implications, but also feels dismissive of the contributions our members make, especially in light of significant inflation since 2020, where has severely affected our members' living standards. One caution we have is that the county's budget, all non-bargaining employees are slated for a 5% wage increase, but yet all bargaining employees were offered a 3.25. Why the difference? Our willingness to engage has been met with a lack of urgency by the county's administration. Most troubling, however, has been the role of the unelected administrative director, Nancy Schreiber. In these negotiations, essential details about our position were not fully communicated to you guys, leading to further delays and mismanagement of the negotiation process. Consequently, members of our union have lost all confidence in her ability to do her job in these negotiations on behalf of the county. Given these challenges, we find ourselves compelled to insist on further adjustments to reflect the economic realities our members face. We urge the board to take a more direct role. The ongoing issues in HR management has severely impacted our confidence in the negotiation process. Delays and excuses will no longer be tolerated. We are prepared to take all necessary legal measures to expedite these positions towards a fair resolution. It is our hope that to resolve these issues cooperatively, but we stand ready to protect our members' interest with all available resources. Let us proceed with the urgency and the seriousness this matter warrants, ensuring our deputies not only acknowledged for their dedication, but also compensated fairly, reflecting the findings of your own studies and realities they face. On March 12, 2024, the county posted a job opening for a building, zoning, and environmental inspector position. According to the posting, the salary range was $48,991 to $59,583. Then again on May 16th, the county reposted the same position with a salary range of $59,280 to $65,568. That position in itself is a 21% increase. I'm sure this is due to the county's own salary study. With that being said, a 21% increase for that position, but the board has offered us 3.25 when the salary study shows we are 11% down. Thank you for addressing these pressing issues. We hope we can correct these issues. Thank you.
Mike, I got something I wanna,
Yes, sir.
we've been friends for
About 10 years.
10 years, and we talk on a regular basis, right?
Regular basis, yes.
In any of those communications, have I ever given you any indication of where I stand or this board stands in regards to union negotiations?
Never,
Want to make that clear.
never.
Anyone else? For the rest of it?
I wanted to speak to some project updates. Our bridge out in North Isaac, Contractor's currently working on putting the deck on. We hope that in the next couple weeks we can get a bridge deck poured. So that project is, knock on wood, hopefully a month or two out from being complete. Our pavement markings project, our maintenance one, our contractor's been delayed due to all the rains across the state. They're hoping to get in though within the next couple weeks. And then we recently got all the contracts signed for our Moscow Road paving project. That is with Manats, and we have a pre-con scheduled in 2 weeks. So I hope to get more news from them as far as their schedule. As it sounds right now, they're kind of talking like it might be a little later in the year before they begin paving. But we'll know more. So, 2 other items I did want to hit on today was last week I attended a meeting with the County Engineers Association. And I know I've spoken to this before, but the Iowa DOT, along with the county engineers, applied for a grant to formulate new safety action plans for our roadways. What triggered this safety action plan is the bipartisan infrastructure bill that came through here a couple years ago through the federal government. In order to get at some of that money, we need these safety action plans. The safety action plan identifies either simple items as far as you need wider pavement markings to all the way up to, hey, you have a road that has poor geometry, you should look into potentially redesigning that stretch of highway. We will have we've sent off a lot of our data to the consultant that was hired to review these plans. So they're currently looking at that. They're looking at crashes, our road designs, and also some of our stop signs and other signage.
So we have to get a grant to hire people to study how to make a plan to get money for a shovel-ready project passed several years ago.
Yes.
Brilliant. Brilliant.
That pretty much sums it up. Need a grant to hopefully apply for another grant. So, and
That's how it work, people.
the grant that the state is hopeful to get money at, I'm pretty sure you guys have received emails for, is the SS4A, the Safe Streets for All grant.
SS, I thought something else completely.
So, they did set up a meeting. They determine when we will host a meeting. We'll invite people. We'll invite the EMA director, also the sheriff. You board members will also be invited, and that will be on Tuesday, October 22nd. So it's a ways out, and you guys will be receiving an email with more information in regards to it. So, the final thing I had was last week. The Region 9 sent out the projects for this round of grant funding for STBG. That's our federal funding for highways. There were 3 projects on there. Well, actually, there was 4th. One was the project that wasn't evaluated but is still being included is our F58 project. We requested additional funding for that. These things happen quite a long ways out in advance, and due to just construction trends, the costs have gone up significantly. And the project also somewhat grows in scope too. As you get more down into the weeds, you identify drainage structures and stuff like that maybe weren't taken into account before. So, but we have a meeting this week to discuss the ranking of them, and so hopefully at the next meeting I'll be able to come back and speak to that more. So the preliminary rankings came back about how I would expect. It also reflected somewhat well too with where everyone is at as far as funds that have been awarded in the past. So it's a pot of money that typically gets divvied up every couple years, but there's a gentleman's agreement between all the entities, and everyone tries to stay somewhat close to that, give or take. So yeah, hopefully next week, or not next week, I guess. In 2 weeks, I can speak to that more. So that's all I had.
Brian, somebody mentioned the barricade on 41st over that culvert is gone now. A couple weeks ago when I talked to you, it sounded like it was gonna be there for a while until, is
Yeah.
that okay now?
No, it is not okay. Well, it is band-aided up. I'll say it like that. We had a structure that is failing on 41st. It's probably about 2/3 of a mile, or no, probably 1/3 of a mile east of Burlington. It's a large corrugated metal pipe culvert, and it is separating and failing. So we were able to button it up to where we felt comfortable removing the signs. We're gonna have to work that into our program to get that thing replaced, and it'll most likely be pretty expensive. So
So it's gonna be still probably a few years, it's gonna be down the road before you can get.
it'll be down the road.
Is it
So.
ever possible, if there's a part of a culvert bad, like on an end, is it possible to do a patch on those, or is it, there's a whole thing?
No, you can do patches. I mean, no matter what you do, it's going to be, a Band-Aid of sorts. But this one is failing where typically at the joints where they had to connect two pipes together, those typically fail first. And then for corrugated metal pipes, usually the bottoms where there's water typically sitting, any chemicals that are in the water slowly eat away at the steel. So that's where this one is the double whammy. There's a joint that is completely failing, and then the bottom of the pipe's just rusted out. So
So when you
it's
redesign, will you likely go back to a concrete box or something?
I'm not sure yet. While I've held this position, we haven't had any issues with beavers, but I do recall, and I've been told stories about the struggles that were down there for many years.
Yeah, it's been
So that'll be something we take into account, but it's a unique spot. It's so flat that the size of the structure doesn't have to be, real big. So, but we haven't even started designing it yet. So we've
you get
looked
longer
at-
life out of like concrete culverts and metal,
Yes, certainly. Yep.
Yeah.
but they're typically 50% more, double.
Oh, they're easily double.
Easily double.
Easily double. And I mean, for a pipe like this, the issue you run into is you start getting into, you can't get a corrugated metal pipe manufactured large enough. So then you're looking into what they call like multi-plates. They come in about, to make the circle, they come in about 3-4 parts. And then either county crews or a contractor bolt them together on site, and then
Kinda like building a silo under the road, right?
pretty much.
It holds yucky water.
Right. Thank you.
Well, next, Gary, okay.
Just wanted to give you an update on the courthouse roof project with pre-construction meeting late last week, where we met with court administration, general services, my staff, contractor, kind of went over what we see as potential issues for how to tackle this while maintaining operability of the courthouse. They're expecting mobilization. At that time, they said about 2 weeks, so about a week and a half now. We could see some mobilization they'll begin with setting up their lift and their scaffolding. You'll see we were gonna map the sprinkler system on the courthouse lawn with flags, so you start seeing flags out there. That's simply to give them visual on where our sprinkler system is so they can avoid that. I met with the sheriff and Captain McCleary on the sidewalk closures. None of the public sidewalks around 3rd Street, Walnut Street, Mulberry, 4th Street will be closed at all, but we are going to restrict access on the various sidewalks that lead up to the courthouse. So you'll see some barricading, chaining, signage, because pretty much by the time the project gets going, the whole building at some point is going to have scaffolding all the way around it. So we need to account for public safety as we're funneling them into the two primary entrances. It sounds like, talking to Sheriff, he's going to make sure the judges are okay. We'll probably reopen the 3rd Street entrance so that we have the shortest route for the public to access the building from two sides. you won't be able to walk around the upper level just because the scaffolding is going to be so close to the public sidewalks. But you're going to see some activity there. Some of it's, we'll just have to see how the public responds. It's very challenging to restrict traffic flow, but also maintain complete safety. You know, there'll be a railing and netting around the entire roof, so I don't want to alarm anybody that's going to be extremely dangerous, but there's going to be equipment there. It's
Always a risk.
so we're doing what we can to try to manage traffic flow and provide for the safety of people. But
What kind of
it's
time frame are they talking about
At
here?
least all summer.
Awesome.
Yep. And then depending on the number and gravity of trials that occurs and the potential disruption, depending on where the project is at when those trials may or may not be scheduled, there may be some delays. But this company assured us they're very used to working in that environment and, you know, kind of expect to maybe have to shift to a different roof section if there's a trial going on that can't.
If all those criminals could tone it down for a bit, it'd save us some money.
That'd be great, right?
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Yeah. So,
Also, I haven't heard anything, this is not on that topic expressly, but is there anything going on with the security improvements to the courthouse? Are you involved with that?
I'm not involved in
Okay.
that at all.
I can speak that we had this meeting, it's been several months ago
Yeah.
now, and Sheriff Quinn was going to come back to the board to kind of speak to this, but as of this point in time, he's not. So I don't know where we're at.
People
either.
ask me about it from time to
But-
time, and every other courthouse I go to's got a metal detector, and so, just curious, so, thanks.
So that's an update on where that is. Yeah.
This is outside of this, so that sewer issue out to M&W, do you have any updates on that?
Haven't had any more issues. They had one additional overflow about a week after that major one. They got on it a little quicker, and we're lining up contractor to actually repair some section of underground pipe. I briefed the Board of Health last week on that whole matter, and so we're kind of sitting back and seeing if they are more proactive and more responsive than they were from that incident before. So not aware of anything, and I think I would be because residents out there have my cell phone number now. Know that they can call us directly, so we can get on it a lot quicker and try to help.
Getting a new cell phone.
Okay.
I have an announcement from the auditor's office. Today is May 30th, and so today is the deadline if you want to fill out a form to request an absentee ballot to be mailed to you. We have to have that form in our office by 5 p.m.
20th,
So- Did I say
30th.
May 30th?
I assume you meant 20th.
Let's back that up.
Yeah.
May 20th is today, and May 20th is the deadline to request an absentee ballot by mail. So if we have residents that call today, we'll have to ask them to come into our office and fill out the form so we have it in person by 5 p.m. today. Today's also the pre-registration voter registration deadline by 5 p.m. Not to be confused with, you can still register to vote during early voting at our counter or register to vote on election day. Iowa allows election day registration, but those that have not lived in our county, if they want to be pre-registered, they can do so today and then vote at the polls without having to prove residency. So,
Does that include for primaries and party changes that people might make?
for party changes that you would make while you're going to vote, that is done at voting time, unless you were like doing a pre-registration to vote today, yes.
And early voting's still going on.
Early voting continues till June 3rd at 4:30 when our
Yeah.
office closes.
I guess I did hear someone ask, are you guys open Saturdays for early voting?
By law, we're to be open 8 hours the Saturday before Election Day. So this year, that is June 1st, we'll be open 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. for voting.
Thanks.
Okay.
Have you seen a good influx of early voters?
It is a low count at this time. As of Friday, when we closed the office, we had mailed 24 absentee ballots, and we had 82 as of this morning
Yeah,
total
I think,
voters.
I voted this morning, I think they said I was number 81 or something.
Okay.
Yeah.
All
Very
right.
good.
Thanks, Toby.
Any other county employees? Any members of the public wishing to address the board? Seeing no one come forward, meeting is adjourned.